OBN show today, joined by Ambassador Francisco da Cruz, Ambassador of Republic of Angola to Ethiopia. In this edition today, we're going to discuss about the EU-AU summit, which was held last week. Ambassador, it's an honor to have you here.
Thank you for this opportunity.
All right, our discussion is going to revolve around the EU-AU summit, which was held on last week, and the major talking points and were the major issues raised on that podium.
Now, this summit was very important because engaged the African Union and the European Union as equals and partners looking for a common vision on our partnership on the way forward. We address a number of issues, from peace and security to the challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic, to investments, and the way of really working together for the betterment of the population of both continents.
Okay, the EU-AU leaders agreed on a joint vision for renewed partnership. What are the areas of common priorities? You have raised common visions, the areas of priority.
Well, one of the areas of common priority is peace, security, and governance. We need stability in Africa. We need to tackle the challenge we have in terrorism, violent extremism, change. These are issues which have an impact on economic development and the social well-being of our populations. We decided to work closely to find the best solution to address these challenges. As you know, the African Union thinks the best way to move forward is to find African solutions to African problems. And the European Union is willing to work with us in complementing the efforts we are making to address these challenges.
Okay, the two unions also discussed on Africa-Europe investment package of 150 billion euro. Will you explicitly state those investment packages of the two continents?
Well, this investment package will be used in three specific areas: investment, health, and education. Will be important for the African Union, the member states of the African Union, to come up with a specific project which will involve investment on these three areas which are the priority of this investment.
Mm-hmm. The EU affirmed to provide at least 450 million vaccine doses to Africa. Do you think it's enough for the continent that has 1.3 billion population?
Well, the commitment is to provide 450 million vaccines by the end of 2022. We think will be important to get such a vaccine. But the main objective will be for Africa to be able to produce its own vaccine, to be ready to address any other pandemic that may arise in the future. And for that, it's important to get assistance from the European Union to allow us, in that sense, to affirm our sovereignty in the medical field also.
Okay, you have also discussed on the way how to prevent irregular migration, especially those people who migrate to Europe and other parts of the world. Would you tell us about this discussion as well?
Well, it's a very important, very sensitive one. We discussed ways of preventing illegal immigration, and for that will be important to foster economic development in the African continent, to prevent people from looking for opportunities in Europe and other parts of the world. And for those countries receiving these migrants, to provide them with legal assistance, a dignified way of adjusting them to the countries where they arrive to.
Okay, Ambassador. Another question. This EU-AU summit is not a unique one. We do have, Africa has Africa-China summit and Russia-Africa summit, right? Can you tell us the difference between these summits comparing with that of the EU-AU summit?
Well, we have quite a number of partners, and as a union, we are in the process of adopting a strategy how to engage with different partners. This is a very important one because it involves very much two continents. We are very closed geographically with historical links. So there's quite a number of things in common, even the history and the emotional component of this partnership. That's why it was very critical to have a forthcoming discussion. It was difficult to arrive to some common ground, but at the end we were happy that we were able to come up with this common vision which will be implemented for years to come.
Okay, most people criticize this EU-AU summit. It's mostly European-oriented, and most of the agendas are European-oriented. Do you agree, Ambassador?
Definitely not. This summit was...
Meaning, sorry for the interruption, the agendas are provided by Europeans, and they put themselves as a privilege, and the African underprivileged. When you see it's all about aid, investment, you see the Africans look forward to have vaccine donation, welcoming investors to the continent Africa. Africans and African leaders were there to hear what the Europeans say. Do you agree?
No, definitely not. First of all, the discussions leading to the organization of this summit were very difficult because both sides were defending their interests and having a very forthcoming discussion. The summit was not to listen to speeches, but was an engagement between leaders of both continents. And at the end, what emerged was very much a common ground which was achieved, was a dialogue of equals, not to one side imposing on the other, because we went there with a very clear strategy, with a very clear mission to defend the interest of the African continent, the interest of member states of the African Union. And that's why we insist on the importance of Africa producing its own vaccines, and that we expect to have the support and the technical assistance and sharing technology from the European side to allow us to be in a better position to address this pandemic. Because it's a challenge for everyone, and no one should be left behind. And therefore, will be in everyone's best interest to cooperate as equals on the best way of addressing our common interests and our common vision for the future.
Have you requested those European leaders to condemn the coup attempts that took place in Chad, Mali, Burkina Faso, and Guinea? Successful coup attempt took place in these countries, and the Europeans are always preaching Africans to have constitutionally elected leaders, and they dictate us on having true democracy. What were the discussion point in these areas?
Well, as the African Union, we condemn the unconstitutional change of government. We have a legal framework to condemn that. So we don't need to learn from the Europeans on that sense. In terms of democracy, we have our own frameworks to impress upon the African leaders the best way to evolve in terms of democracy, inclusive governments, as a ways of having more stability, more commitment from every side on the common good of our respective nations. So the discussion on peace, security and governance was very much an exchange of views regarding the challenge we face. The propagation of terrorism in Africa, and how we can work together to identify the root causes and combat terrorism in a very effective way. How we can enhance stability in the continent to create an environment more conducive to foreign direct investment. So was a discussion where we express our views on how Africa can solve African problems and what kind of assistance and cooperation we can have with our partners like the European Union.
By 2030, the EU-AU has got its own goal to achieve, right?
Definitely.
What are those goals?
Well, the Agenda 2030, it's very much a common agenda, but as an African Union, we have our Agenda 2063. We want a peaceful and integrated and prosperous Africa by then, and that has been the main objective to which we have been working in the different areas and different levels. And that's what motivates us and what directs us in our engagement with the international partners.
EU and African unions collaboratively would work in the area of trade and investment. Let's talk about African Continental Free Trade. And in what way are you going to work with those of European Union?
Well, it's an important for us to implement the African Free Trade Area project, and we are already very advanced in taking practical steps to integrate the economies of the continent. This will provide opportunities for us to engage more with Europe, and for sure that Europe will benefit from the fact that we are going to have a more dynamic and more integrated economy in the continent.
Early on, you said the EU-AU summit has got a real partnership, and it goes both ways. But some criticize that it is most of EU oriented, and they follow a new pattern of colonialism. Don't you agree with this as well?
Definitely not. We are engaging our partners based on our interest in the fact that we are a union of independent member states which need to be and has to be respected by all the partners. And our engagement with Europe has been between equals. And that's why the preparation of this summit was very difficult. We had been negotiating until late hours of this summit to reach common ground. So it's not one side trying to impose the other side. It's both sides trying to find the best way to work together. Africa is becoming more assertive. Africa knows its place in the international arena, and our partners will know that we mean business. And we are not engaging with them just for their benefit, but we are discussing ways of common understanding and mutual benefit.
Okay. On last African Union summit, it was told that Africa is going to produce its own vaccine. In the meantime, on the EU-AU summit, Europeans are going to help Africa with this vaccine equipment. What were talking points in the area of helping this African vaccine medication and this pharmaceutical-related medical production in Africa?
Well, it's in our strategic interest to produce our own vaccines, and we are moving in that direction. Some African countries are already in the process of producing vaccines. We look for and expect the assistance from our partners to help us to achieve that in a level that will really be aligned with the needs and the challenges we face, not only regarding this pandemic, but other medical challenges we may have in the future. We are also engaging with the World Health Organization to assist us in that sense. And there are already 6 countries which have been selected as the one which will be in forefront of producing vaccines for the continent.
Okay, you told me what you've discussed with those European leaders in the area of mitigating and preventing irregular migration that goes to Europe, and you mentioned the solidarities of the 2 continents. You also told me the diplomacy and development investment you see. What ought to be done to have a true and genuine diplomacy among Europeans with that of African countries, which is free from any conspiracy? You got my point, Ambassador?
Well,
I do have my own reason. For example, those coups took place in various countries in Africa, got some infiltrated hands from external bodies. There is such kind of criticism. We need a very genuine diplomacy. We need a very real partnership with that of Europeans. Can we entertain that in this current mood?
Definitely. That's why in our discussion, and is reflected in a joint declaration, the respect for the sovereignty, the rule of law, governance, freedom of people. It's very much under those principles that we have been discussing the common vision. It's important for us as Africans to address our challenges in an inclusive way, find sustainable solutions for the challenges we face in our respective countries, involving the different stakeholders, because as long as we are united, as long as we are committed to the common good, there will be no external influence or external actors which will undermine what we are trying to do as independent countries. So it's very much up to us, up to the citizens of each country, what to do for their common good. And well, what we can see is a partnership where we know where we stand. And, and we are engaged as equals, as sovereign nations that know where to lead, where to go for the common good of our populations. And that's the main objective of how we engage with the partners, to make sure that at the end of the day, the benefits are mutual, that our interests are defended, and any commitment, any agreement we have has to take into account, our sovereignty and our interests as member states of the Union, as independent countries of this continent.
Thank you, Ambassador. You told us all the discussion points raised on the EU-AU summit. Now I proceed to another agenda. Let's talk about the bilateral relationship between Republic of Angola with that of Ethiopia.
Well, we have relations of historical relations, two countries with Pan-Africanist views, very committed for peace, stability, and the good of this continent. We established diplomatic relations in 1977, and we have an embassy open in Addis since 1979. The main cooperation we have is in aviation services. We cooperate with Ethiopian Airlines, which provide technical assistance to our aircraft, training to our personnel, and there are potential to expand the cooperation to other areas. In December 2019, we had a meeting at the directors level to identify other areas of cooperation. We have 3 agreements to be signed, one on economic, technical, and scientific area, one on a protocol to political consultations on both the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of both countries, and an agreement for visa exemption on passports, diplomatic and service passports. So we expect in the near future to be able to sign these 3 agreements, which will really provide the basis for a more dynamic, more engaged cooperation between both countries.
Okay. You know the current political dynamics of Ethiopia, right? And as an ambassador, you feel and you see what's going on in this country. How do you tell, the current picture of Ethiopia to the global world?
Well, it's important that we respect the sovereignty of each country and the way the leaders play their responsibilities for the common good of the populations. What we can say is that in the African context, there has been a broader commitment to democracy, to more inclusive governments, to create an environment of stability, to enhance investment, and that's the way really we see things happening in the continent. And we value what happened in this country, because the African Union is here, and what happens in Ethiopia has an impact on the continent, and it's very important that we continue to have the kind of assistance, the kind of support we get from the Ethiopian authorities, so we can really have good conditions to do our work here in Addis at the African Union.
Okay. It's a bilateral relationship, right? Angola learns from Ethiopia and it's vice versa. And the benefit goes both ways. And what would Angola learns from Ethiopia, and what Ethiopia learns from Angola in their political, economic, and social dynamics?
Well, as I say, we both countries are committed to Pan-Africanism. Both countries have been very active in peace and stability of the continent. Ethiopia has a lot of experience in peacekeeping operations. It's one area where Angola is getting ready to get into, and we think that we can, learn from Ethiopia in that sense. Angola, play an important role in peace prevention, peace conflict prevention, management and resolution, especially in the Great Lakes region. It's one area where we think we can really share our experience and assist the Ethiopian side to be more forthcoming in what happens here in the region, and how jointly we can really be more active in silencing the guns in the continent as a strategic objective of the African Union.
Okay, Ambassador Francisco da Cruz, Ambassador of Republic of Angola, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for this opportunity to...
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Dear viewers, this brings you the end of our edition for today. See you next time with another edition. Bye-bye. Take care.